Welcome to The Right Height, a blueprint for cultural impact. My name is Gavon, and I'm a strategist who's spent years connecting vision with execution. I've seen firsthand how the right insight can transform careers and companies. And this podcast dives into how cultural impact is built, how hype is sustained, and how emerging creatives can build long-term impact. If you're serious about leveling up as a creative or professional, grab a pen and paper or your notes app and get ready, because what you're about to listen to could be the key to unlocking your full potential. Before I get started, if this podcast brings you any bit of value in any way, shape, or form, the best way to support this podcast is to download this episode. Downloads directly impact the podcast's reach and helps get these conversations to more people who need them most. It takes 2 seconds and it'll make a big difference. Thank you. All right, let's get into it. Welcome back to the Right Hype podcast, a blueprint for creators and professionals. My name is Gavon, your host, and today we have a special guest. His name is Phil Perkovic. Phil is the current director of brand and partnerships at Shinola, the American watchmaker. Prior to that, he spent his time at Google as a creative strategist, working in brand experiences, and he has a wealth of knowledge in creative strategy, working for agencies such as Mother New York and Noble People. Today, we're going to be diving into his background, coming up through the ranks, and a little bit more about, collaborations and partnerships, as well as watches, and talking about the watch game. Thank you, Phil, for joining us on the Right Hype podcast. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we're able to do this in person.
Oh, yeah. It's a rainy day today, and I know you had a busy schedule, so I'm really happy that you're able to carve out some time.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So I like to start off just with a little bit of background. Can you just tell us what was life growing up for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Flint, Michigan. I'm a first-generation American. So my dad came over, I think in 84, 85 from former Yugoslavia. And so, I, kind of grew up in an immigrant household. My parents were in the restaurant business for 37 years. So just grew up working, grew up kind of with that hard work mentality. And school is always important. Like my parents kind of preached, like my dad would always say, like, hey, I work with my hands so you can work with your brain. Like, I want to give you that option, right? He didn't, and because he came to this country, couldn't speak English, had to learn the language, and he could only get jobs like working at restaurants or like, again, at the time in the 80s, General Motors in Flint. So he was like working at the factory. But yeah, man, had a very, very incredible childhood, very blessed, very fortunate. Got to just be around entrepreneurship at a young age, seeing my parents go through the restaurant industry. And they worked hard and sent me and my brothers to a very good private school in Flint. And yeah, so I kind of just had like this kind of cosm of just like work ethic and then like meeting people, whose parents were doctors and lawyers and going to that same type of environment, being in the same school, as those kinds of kids. And yeah, education, again, was just like super important. And I think the thing I learned the most, I learned a lot in my childhood, but I think the thing that really stuck out is just like whatever skills you lack, you can make up for with hard work, because I was never the most like naturally smart person in class, but I always worked the hardest. I always told people like, you're not going to outwork me. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to figure it out, and you kind of just take that mindset of seeing your parents having to work hard just to like, achieve their American dream. And it's kind of cliche, like the immigrant story, like that hard work ethic's distilled into you, but it really is, because like that's just the life that's your environment, So yeah, it's been a really, really incredible childhood. So
I can relate to that a lot.
Yeah.
My mom and my dad are both from Jamaica.
Okay,
and so to your point, I saw my parents work a lot.
Yeah.
And to give us the life that we have today.
Don't take a single second of it for granted.
And I think as you get older, you appreciate it even more.
Yeah.
All the 100%. Sacrifices that they made.
100%.
You mentioned entrepreneurship. When I was doing my research on you, I saw that you and your brothers actually had started a business. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So we were, as kids, always hustling. So like, because we had access to the restaurant industry, like I remember in like the 90s, you know, like every year, like our neighborhood would do a garage sale. We didn't have stuff to sell. Like we weren't going to sell our toys, but we would like set up a little grill and like cook food with our dad and like sell hot dogs and like pop and waters and stuff. So like we were always just hustling, always scheming. And then that kind of just morphed into, you know, just like selling, you know, food at garage sales to like selling Pokemon cards and Beanie Babies, and like just kind of got, you know, just like whatever we could get our hands on, we'd always just try to like, you know, do something with it. And then just, you know, again, having kind of, you know, being in the hospitality business, how our family being in the hospitality business, you just become a hospitable person. So, you know, one of my strengths in something that I still kind of like take, you know, something that I still kind of hold near to me today is like my relationships, and like, you know, being able to just walk into a room and just like make friends with people and like, you know, have these relationships. So my brothers and I, my older brother and I are 13 months apart, and my little brother and I are 18 months apart. So when we were in high school, like my brother was in 9th grade, I was in 11th, my older brother was a senior. And then even in college, we all went to school. We were all within a year of each other. So we cultivated so many friendships across like so many different, like a good like 2 to 4 year age gap of like classes and ages. So we started just like throwing parties on a whim. So, you know, I don't know, I was probably at this point 17, 18. You know, you throw a party, and the first one we did, like 500 kids showed up.
Wow.
And we're charging like $10 a head, right? So we just made $5,000.
Yeah.
We paid, you know, our friend to DJ like $300. We paid someone to make the flyer for like $150, whatever. You're walking away with a couple racks.
Yeah.
And, you know, my brothers would split it. And I was like, at 18, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to retire. But what happened was, you know, we kind of parlayed that. We were doing events pretty regularly. And then a buddy of mine actually was at Central Michigan University, and he worked with Red Bull, and Red Bull was bringing artists. And he was like, hey, listen, like, they would go, like, their business model was they would go like to like popular bars and say, hey, we'll bring this artist if you can, you know, pay this like small fee. So I met him, Anthony Mazzaro. He's still one of my best friends today. And he was like, hey, like, the bar is down to do it, but they don't have the cash. Do you want to like do a joint venture with the bar and split the door sales, blah, blah, blah. So we started to get into concerts. So it went from parties to like concerts. And, you know, we were doing events with like, and I don't want to age myself, but like Time Flies. I don't even know who else. We did an event with like G-Eazy, with DJ Drama, with Wale, with Chitty Bang. We did a show with Pusha T in Ann Arbor. So we were just doing concerts all over Michigan, like all these different venues. And yeah, we like learned so much, made some money, lost some money, but overall, like the learning experience was insane. And that's kind of like my first, you know, kind of like introduction to marketing, right? Because like we were like, hey, how do we get people to give us money for something? How do we tell enough people about this moment, this party, this event, this concert, whatever, and get them hype enough, right? And this is like, we didn't have Instagram. We had MySpace, right? Facebook was barely a thing. So like, I kid you not, we would like...
There was no Eventbrite or Party Floor.
None of
those.
None of that existed. So what we would do was like, we would, you know, we worked with like a couple really great designers, one of them being my cousin Monica. Yeah, we would just design like 5 or 6 different versions of like different like flyers. And we would go get them printed, and like, I kid you not, like door to door, just walk around like walk around college campuses and just like, who do we know here? Who do we know here? Who do we know here? And just like, it was so guerrilla and boots on the ground, you know? But like, it's to me, it's again, one of those things where it's just like, you're not going to outwork us, you know? Like, if things fail, that's okay. Cause we know that like we did everything we could do, you know? And like, we're never upset at the failure, only if we know that the effort wasn't there, you know? So yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. You know, you learn a lot. And it's kind of crazy being like 18, 19, 20, you know, like on the phone with these agents And, you know, like I was on the phone with CAA, with William Morris, like as a 20-year-old, like saying, hey, like I saw this artist is, you know, routed from Chicago going to Cleveland. Like, can they stop here for, you know, a night for 2 hours? Oh, yeah. You know, and like that's how we booked Wyclef. He had a show in Detroit and the show ended early. So like I called it, I think I DM'd his like manager. So I forgot what it was, but I messaged somebody and I was like, hey, like we got like $2,000, $3,000. You can come up for like 45 minutes, do a walkthrough. It's like, we'll send a car, you know, and just taking shots like that and just like, you know, just like having fun and yeah, just kind of living in it. And like, but yeah, you get to learn so much about just like people and like, you know, it's such a unique thing when you create a situation where someone pays you for an experience, then you have to deliver, you know? So like you get to really learn about like a lot about like why people choose to go out and what they're looking for. And like, you know, how do you kind of cultivate those communities? At the time, there were a ton of like really cool collectives. Like I think, what was it called? Scoremore, Sasha, I forgot his last name, but he was doing the craziest college parties, you know? And like, there's just so many cool things happening in kind of like the college space. And yeah, we were just you know, products of kind of the environment and the moment and the time. Yeah.
You saw the opportunity, and it's also cool that you have family to do it alongside, because, you know, those are learnings that are going to get passed down. Yeah. Sort of like oral history. You brought up that was your first taste of marketing. When did you actually make that transition to agents working for like
not until I was much older. I got into the game late. Okay. Like late. So I graduated college in 2011, which is kind of like the worst time. You know, there was like a recession and like no one was hiring. And I didn't even study marketing. So I have a degree in economics and I have another degree in business management. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just like loved numbers. And I loved like, you know, just trends and analyzing things. And I think that's kind of what naturally drew me into doing strategy work early on, was like trend searching. And like, you know, I've always been such a curious person. And there's like one of the things that helped me transition into the creative industry was like, especially within advertising, when I was growing up, right, I had to study American culture to assimilate. So I would go down these rabbit holes of just like, what are people into? Because like I needed to, like, I didn't know. Like my parents are like, what kind of shoes do you want? And I'm like, well, let me go look. Let me go to the playground and see what people are wearing. Yeah. You know, like they didn't know the brands, you know, like, so I had to like, you know, really hone in and study kind of like pop culture and American culture and fashion and music and things. And like, there are things that, you know, my brothers and I naturally kind of gravitated towards, you know. Any kid, right? You're going to be a basketball fan, especially growing up in Michigan, you know, big sports state. But we got into wrestling and Pokemon cards and just like all the things. And like, we would go to meetups and like go down these rabbit holes. But part of it too, for us, was like, yeah, this is great and there's community around it. But like, we were like indirectly like assimilating and studying culture. Yeah. So I was able to, you know, take that and apply it to you know, just traditional marketing. And what I found was I got my first agency job in 14, and I was like just really like curious. So I'd ask the strategy director, I'm like, hey, like, where do these insights come from? And they'd be like, well, we use these tools. I'm like, oh, do you guys own the tools? They go, no, everyone has the tools. Like everyone has, what are they called? Oh my God, I'm blanking.
What, like consumer,
like what are the
Qualtrics or
like
all of those
like
surveys.
The survey. What's the
ethnography?
What's the survey one?
I mean, there's a lot. I don't even. I was big in ethnography, so we did a lot of qualitative work and branding. I never I'm just now starting to touch more of the quantitative stuff. Okay,
so what I learned was every agency pays for the same data. Yeah. Right? And I'm just like, all right, well, that just didn't feel right.
Like
to me.
Statista?
Statista's one.
Yeah, WGSN sometimes.
What's the there's I don't know, there's so many. But yeah, I was like noticing like, oh, okay, this is how agents, like big brands pay agencies to find out, like to like do this kind of research in this kind of like work. And what I found out was like, like, when have you ever answered one of those things truthfully?
Yeah.
Or like cared about it, right? B, by the time it becomes data, by the time it goes through the system and, you know, like you're looking at over indexes and stuff, I'm like, by the time that happens, like you're missing so much, right? And what I started to notice was a lot of the briefs we were getting agency side were every brand wanted attention, right? So my head was like, I'm going to start studying and learning about what's getting attention now in culture and seeing what I can pull from this, right? And maybe mix in some of like the hard data that I know these brands are looking for. But I'm going to over index on like culture. And this is like, again, 2014, 15, cultural marketing wasn't a thing. But to me, it was like stuff I just loved, right? It's like, it was like, you know, like we did this campaign for Jameson whiskey. And we were the AOR at the time. And this was like, there was like a big like Moscow Mule phase. And they were like, oh, like how does Jameson whiskey get into the conversation? And we like did some social listening and we found that people are already drinking Jameson mules. But you're never going to find that like through like old school data, right? Like we were like searching Twitter feeds, searching Reddit feeds, and like finding out people were like already doing it, you know? Yeah. So it's like those are the things that, you know, that for us that we were doing in 2014 and 15 of like, hey, how do we take what's happening in the real world and apply it to kind of like modern marketing? And like, you know, there's all these things about fast advising and like how quick can you respond to things? Like 10 years ago, people weren't quick and they weren't responding to things, right? And it's a much different industry now, but back when we, you know, when I was kind of like, you know, getting my chops and starting off in advertising, those are the kinds of ways I was like looking at problems, you know, through the lens of just like the real world. Yeah. You know, and it's not to diminish any, you know, there's like strategy work is rooted in these kind of fundamentals, right? And I think they have to be. But to me, I think that, you know, the world that like, I think what happens a lot of times is marketers tend to live in their own bubbles, right? All the agencies are like in New York, in LA, in San Francisco. And I lived here for 7 years, and I got to remind myself, like, this isn't how the rest of the world operates, you know? Not like living in Detroit now, like there's so many just disconnects between like how like the rest of America, you know, acts and consumes and behaves and, you know, versus like when you go to these very, very dense cities that have culture and different ethnicities and, you know, everyone here is forced to like live together. Yeah. Where in like the rest of the world, you can say, hey, I'm going to live in this neighborhood with only people I like. Yep. And just like live in my bubble, you know? And I think sometimes as marketers, we tend to forget about the average person. You know, so it's like being able to kind of switch those things on and off and like really put yourself in like someone else's shoes. I think that's such a like underrated skill.
I definitely agree 100% with that one. And it can be difficult, to your point, because
it's hard. Yeah.
What's cool is subjective.
100%.
And you're never going to win, you know, just based off of opinion sometimes, which is where like data can play a role. But I agree, like that's sort of what drew me to this field was I saw there was a science and I also saw that there was an art. Right. And I was like, okay, I feel like I can get in here. Yeah. You know, because if you can do both, I think you can really be
100%.
You can kind of find your way anywhere in this industry. Yeah. So tell me about Shinola. What drew you to the opportunity to work there?
Yeah, so I moved to Detroit in 2021, I was still working for Google at the time. And I was, going back to San Francisco every once in a while. But a friend of mine, one of my good friends, Maddie, connected me to the former CEO of Shinola. So at the time, Awanate was the CEO, and she was like, "Hey, like, you live in Detroit, you need to meet this guy because he just knows everybody." So Awanate and I meet for drinks, and then we end up talking for like 3 hours. Just like incredible human. And it was just on some like, "Hey, you guys should just know each other. Like, you live in Detroit now. Like, he can introduce you to a lot of people. Like, grow your network type thing." And we started talking, and obviously I was familiar with the brand, being growing up in Michigan, like you're from you know what Shinola is, and I never it didn't cross my mind that I would be working there. Right? It's just kind of like, meet this guy, he's connected in the city, he's a good person to know, and we had a really good conversation. And he was like, "Hey, like, you should meet our chief creative officer, Ruthie Underwood." So I'm like, "All right, cool, like." I'll meet another creative. Like, I don't know anyone here yet, so like I'm building out my network. So I meet Ruthie. And again, we talk for like 2-3 hours, like incredible. Like, we just like so connected. And that day, so I met Ruthie. And that night I put together like a 50-page deck. Just like, I was just inspired. And I'm like, here's like 50 things I would do tomorrow if I were you guys. Because like during our conversation, she was talking about like her direction and how she wanted to change the brand and like all these things. So I was just like, all right, cool. What I learned throughout my career was, when I was younger, I used to be so protective of ideas. I would never tell anyone about my ideas, right? Because, they're going to steal your ideas. People aren't going to steal your ideas. Most people are like lazy. They're not going to do the work, right? To me, ideas used to be currency. Now execution's currency. So I'm like, hey, I'm just going to give you all this game, all these gems. Maybe, I don't know, out of the 50, maybe like a handful are actually like good, right? I was just like, putting a bunch of stuff together, different directions, different content things, different partnerships, different whatever, just like cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
Sent it to her. She calls me the next day. I was like, when did you do this? Like, I did it last night. Like, I was just like inspired. And she was like, I sent this to the founder, Tom. He's going to be in Detroit next week. He wants to meet you. So I meet with Tom a week later, and he's the one who sold me. He's the one who sold me on Shinola. So he's an incredible human. He's just like unassuming, like 6'4", 6'5", Greek man, he started Fossil, sold it for a lot of money, and kind of, our conversation was like, hey, listen, like, there's easier ways to make money than building a watch factory in America. He's like, I'm not doing this is like a legacy thing for me, right? Like, I want to be known for bringing back manufacturing. I want to be known for revitalizing American watchmaking. That's what he was passionate about. And he kind of just sold me on the vision. And I was like, oh, man, like, why'd you have to do that? And, we started talking, and I was like, because I was still working for Google at the time. And I was just like, hey, Tom, listen, like, here's what I need, right? Like, they've never had anyone in my position. So they created the role. And, I basically was like, hey, listen, like, you're going to have to let me try a bunch of things. Some of them might work, some might not work. But I just need you to commit to like doing new things, right? Because what I noticed was, during the pandemic, the things that made Shinola unique, they stopped doing, right? Like, they were a big experiential brand, and they were doing a ton of cool things, and like all this, like hotel. Oh yeah, so the hotel was built in 2019, I think. But like, building bikes and turntables and like, just like all these cool partnerships, like all this stuff. And I'm just like, the pandemic hit, and the brain kind of just, took a back seat. And like, I was like, hey, like, here's what we're going to do. Right. And here's what I want to do. Here's what I think we can do. But I just need you to give me like some resource, aka budget, and like some time, and like, let's figure this out. So yeah, I all three of them, Ruthie and Tom and Amanate, gave me so much autonomy early on when I started at Shinola. And we've been able to do, I'm not even like just like trying to gas it up, but I think some really incredible things, right? Like, we started a watchmaking interview show called The Movement. So I was literally, my first week at Shinola, I got a tour of the factory, and Like, you got to come to Detroit and see it because it's the craziest thing in the world. So, like, you're in a clean room, right? You're, like, wearing, you know, all these smocks and, like, hairnet and everything. And you're seeing, like, the tiniest screws be picked up by a human hand, placed into the water. Like, you're seeing all this. Like, it's like someone's playing Operation.
Wow.
And you're seeing, you know, 60, I don't know, 70, 80 people here and, like, in the factory. It's like, it's buzzing, it's humming. And I was just so inspired. And I'm like, oh my God. And I wasn't really a watch guy. Like, I didn't own a watch before I started at Shinola. And I'm like, this is how it happens. They're like, yeah, every single watch is hand assembled. And I was like, that's insane. So I come home and, you know, again, just doing what I normally do. I turn on Hot Ones and I'm watching Hot Ones. And I'm like, oh my God, what is our version of Hot Ones? Like, what would a celebrity come to Detroit to do? Like, what gives us the right to interview a celebrity? And I'm like, let's have them build a watch.
That's fine.
And I pitched the show, and I remember Ruthie was like, have you ever produced a show? I was like, no, but I'll figure it out. Like, like, just say, like, I just need you to say yes.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. And, like, you know, so she was like, let's do it. So I literally, the first two people I wanted on the show were Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson. And this is 2023. So I Think You Should Leave. I think it only had one season. You know, it's doing well. Sam was doing a bunch of great work as well. And I just DM'd him. And I said, hey, like, my name is Phil. I started at Shinola like a month ago. Had this crazy idea. Do you have 5 minutes? Tim was like, yeah, here's my number. So I called Tim. And I'm like, hey, Tim, want to start a show. It's a watchmaking thing. Sam already said he's down. I didn't talk to Sam yet. And he was like, all right, if Sam's in, like, I'll do it. I call Sam. And I'm like, hey, want to do this show, watchmaking thing, blah, blah, blah. And Sam's a big watch guy. And they're both fans of the brand, right? They both have supported Shinola for a long time. So there's already a natural connection. But I was like, hey, Tim said he's doing it. If you do it. So Sam's like, all right, I'll do it. So they came to Detroit. We filmed, you know, Sam was our first pilot episode. We filmed it with Sam. And yeah, it's just been such an incredible experience to just like have these ideas and thoughts that are kind of rooted in like, you know, intuition and culture and content. And it really gives us as a brand, like, our superpower is the factories in our office, in our headquarters, right? Like, no other watch brand has that. Well, there's no other watch factory in America at scale, right? There's a handful of micro brands that are making, I don't know, 20, 30 watches a year. We can make up to 80,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
For running full speed, right? So we have, it's like, what, I think 12,000 square foot factory right in Midtown Detroit. And that's like our superpower. I'm like, hey, I can't bring everyone to Detroit, but through content, I can bring Detroit to everybody. So we started the show, and we've had episodes hit up to 200,000-300,000 views organically.
Nice.
And it just gives us a reason to stay in tune with culture. And we had Wallow, he came on the show. Dej Loaf was on the show. Turk Skubal, who's like one of the best baseball players in the world right now, he came on the show. Alice Cooper, Mia Surfing, like, so many people have been on the show, and it's just like such a cool thing that we built this thing off an idea.
Yeah.
And like people just like enjoy it because it's a good blend of entertainment, right? Because like people are doing something they've never done before, so it's like very hard to do, and everyone's messing up, right? Because it's like our watchmakers are trained,
Oh, yeah.
So there's a built-in kind of like virality of them messing up, but it's also educational because like we're teaching people what we do. And Titus, who's the host, Titus was one of the first 5 employees at Shinola, and he started in the factory, and he's probably built himself, I don't know, 60, 70,000 watches over the last 10 years.
Wow.
And he could literally do it with his eyes closed. And like, he's explaining how to do it, and he does it so quick. And then other people are like, well, you made that look easy. And then they try to do it, and it's like, they can't do it. So yeah, to me, it's like a good example of like taking culture, taking content, understanding like what is our brand point of view? How can we do something that no other brand can do, right? And like, you know, how do you kind of, you know, create moments and content, and like all this stuff is considered quote unquote marketing.
Yeah.
Right. It's upper funnel. It's social content. It's organic. We use it on emails and websites and, you know, all this stuff. And like, it's not traditional in any sense, but for us, it's a way for us to reach new audiences.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Through the lens of celebrity.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, I could never afford, you know, to do a brand campaign with any one of these people, but they'll do an interview for like a pretty discounted rate.
Interesting.
You know,
you get scrappy.
Yeah, and that's it. So it's like,
and sometimes it takes that mentality for the brand to even get, because I wasn't really a big watch person either.
Yeah, yeah.
I just started getting into watches last year
because
I would just wear Casios because it was just, they were affordable. They were at Journeys. I was like, you know, I need something. And it's also sort of like not a rite of passage, but it feels like as a guy, you know, wearing a watch, you feel it's like wearing a nice outfit. Yeah, yeah.
It's one of the few ways for men to like accessorize. And like also to me, it's such a like personality thing, the way to kind of show your style and like and all those things. And like, yeah, and there's so many different like incredible watch brands out there and different, you know, iconic watches. And I think watch culture right now is as big as it's ever been. There's like watch influencers.
Yep.
And like, you know, there's like the watch community is growing, and it's becoming, you know, what started as like a subculture is now, I would say, almost mainstream.
Yeah.
You know, which is like, there's like watch platforms and blogs, and like, you know, there's Houdinki and Rob Report and a blog to watch. And like, there's platforms dedicated to just watches that are like getting insane page views and impressions and likes and all this stuff. So it's crazy that, you know, you what started as such a like small thing is becoming such a cultural thing. And like, what I love most about it too is like, there's so many different aspects of it, right? I don't know if you're hip to wrist check. So Perry Dash, he's a good friend, started Wrist Check podcast, and he was like, hey, I love watches, but as someone who is African-American, I don't feel represented in this space. So he started his own platform.
Interesting.
And it's called Wrist Check. And they've interviewed some of the craziest like watch brands and people in the industry. And like, they're blowing up.
Wow.
You know, they'll do an episode with like Larry June, and then the next go to Switzerland and like tour a watch factory. And it's like, they just have like, everyone's putting their unique spin on it. And it's such a cool thing to be a part of right now in the moment.
For sure. For sure. I also feel like one of the biggest, most recent moments for Shinola was the J Dilla collection. Because again, like me, I'm just like starting to dive in a little bit, and I learned about Shinola. It's like the only American watchmaker. And then like a week later, I hear about Big Sean, J Dilla. So I want to hear more about that, because that was super cool.
No, yeah, thank you. So that was like a very special project for me. So, one of my things on my big to-do list was, we have a series called the Great American Series. So every year, Shinola honors an American someone who's shaped American culture, right? So the brand started it. I don't know how they came up with it, but they started it when the brand first started. And every year there's been a Great Americans. People you would assume, right? Muhammad Ali, Jackie Robinson, Georgia O'Keeffe, Maya Angelou, the Wright brothers, all incredible people, right? But my task was, how do we rethink what the Great American Series could be? So I started in 2023, and that year it was Jim Thorpe. And 2024 was already solidified, and that was Elijah McCoy. And these are people who have done incredible things that like most people don't know about, right? People might know the real, like the saying, the real McCoy, but they don't know where it comes from, how, like why it even exists. And yeah, so, you know, I started just like researching all the past great Americans and like looking at the product, and I was like, oh, there's such a cool platform here, right? And if to me the kind of through line is someone who shaped culture or innovated American culture, I was just like, again, just being such a big hip hop head, I was just like, you guys, we're kind of sitting on like a diamond in the rough here. And like, what do you mean? I was like, well, there's a producer named J Dilla who changed music. And at the time, like one of my kind of like philosophies about just branding and marketing and advertising is it's much easier to ride waves than make waves, right? And Dan Charnas wrote the Dilla Time book, and it was a #1 New York Times bestseller. And then Questlove announced he's doing the J Dilla documentary, and he just won. They won an Oscar for the Woodstock documentary. So like, there's all this momentum, and I'm like, you guys, this should be our next great American. And then of course I got a lot of like, who's J Dilla? And I was like, perfect. This is like why we need to do this, right? And you know, it took me, I don't know, about like 6 months of internal pitching.
Wow.
Because this like content and brand, like anything that can like we can make and like go on email, social, like those stuff, you know, our like skin in the game isn't that big, right? Just, you know, whatever it costs to make that content, right? But when we start talking about developing product, our lead times are like 18 months. So we had to pick the Great American for 2025 this year and 2023. And I'm the new kid, right? Like I started in 2023, in January 2023. And they're like, wait, we're about to invest like OTB, which is open to buy. So that's how much money we have at the start of every year to buy inventory and produce product that has to make us X amount of dollars.
Gotcha.
Right? So our merch team's like, well, we're about to invest a significant OTB on this watch that like no one knows who this person is. Just because this kid who just been there for 2 months came in and said we should do it, right?
That's a tough one.
So you know, and again, what I've learned through almost a decade plus agency side is I know how to pitch. I worked on every new business, mostly every new business pitch I could get my hands on, right? So I understood pitch theater. I understood how to make a deck, how to tell a story, right? So I took all those learnings from all these years agency side, and I put together one of the best decks of my life. Who is J Dilla? Why is he important? Why do we need to tell the story? What gives us the credibility to tell the story, right? All these things that need to be answered. And what I loved most was I had so much ammunition from just culture, right? So there was an article I think the Atlantic wrote about why J Dilla should be just as important as Mozart.
Oh, wow.
So I took a screenshot of that.
That's a good one.
And I opened up. I'm like, hey, guys, everyone here knows the Atlantic. Here's this article, right? Then the next slide. Why is J Dilla's MPC in the Smithsonian? Next slide. Dan Charnas, #1 time New York seller, Dilla Time. And the whole book is about Dilla literally reinventing time. So I'm like, you guys, there's so many things here. Like you talk about like someone who was so obsessed with the craft, and us like being a design forward brand, you know, the American watchmaker. We talk about craft in everything we do because there are literally hands upstairs in the factory building watches, and I'm like, his craft of using his hands to make music, our craft of telling time, and this guy like literally reinvented time, musical time, right? And our design team just got so like, holy, like they're like, dude, there's so much, there's so many things
unlock
here. And they went to work, and at the time, you know, while they were designing stuff, I was having conversations with the estate. And, you know, J Dilla's estate is, you know, it's been complex in the past. So, you know, that was probably another like 6 months of like relationship building just with the estate, because they've never done a project like this, right? And they're like, hey, like, how do we know you guys are going to best represent the you know, the legacy of James DeWitt Yancey, right? Like, there's been stuff historically in the past, like Shinola's gotten some flack for, again, before my time, you know, appropriating Detroit culture and appropriating Detroit, and like Detroit's the blackest city in America, and they sell watches that most Detroiters can't afford. So there's been stuff in the past that the brand has had to navigate, and they were, they had they had every single right to be a little skeptical, right? But again, understanding, how to pitch people and how to build relationships. I was working the Shinola side and the state side and getting everyone to kind of come to a place. And once we saw the first round of designs, I was like, yo, this is about to be crazy, because you don't even have to know J Dilla to know that this is a beautiful watch, And I think that was first and foremost, like, we're always excited to make beautiful product, right? If we can do that, that's the first box we want to check. Like, how do we make a watch that people want to buy, right? Then the second thing is like, all right, cool. How do we tell a story about this thing, right? And our designer, Greg, our director of design, Greg, also a big hip hop head. And, he started putting all these little Easter eggs in the watch. And like, it's just like, I wish I would have wore one so I could tell you everything. But it ended up becoming such an incredible moment for the brand. Once the watch started to manifest, in 2024, I took the first sample that we had made, and it didn't even work yet. Like, it was just like the case. Sorry, it's just the case. And Big Sean was in Detroit. So I literally pulled up on Big Sean, and he was doing something with StockX, and there was like a kid day or something. He was like he did a free show for the community, and I'm waiting like outside the barricade. And he walks by, and I'm like, yo, Sean, I got to talk to you. And he looked over, and I knew a few people. I knew, like, there's this good friend of mine, Vito, works for Sean, and I was like, I just need 2 seconds. So I jump around the thing, and I was like, we're doing a J Dilla watch. How much I know that we're doing a J Dilla watch? He's like, what? And I pulled out the sample, and he looked at it. He was like, yo, I need this right now. I'm like, well, this one doesn't work. But I got a video of it too. One of my friends was with me. She like recorded the conversation, and there's people everywhere, and I'm just like showing him this watch. I'm like, I want you to be a part of this moment. Mm-hmm. And he's like, whatever you need, I'm in. Go talk to Felicia. She was at Rock Nation. So I go talk to Felicia. We have a couple meetings. And, I kind of explained the vision. And yeah, we got Big Sean to announce that the watch was coming out. Wow. So my thought process was this. If we were to go to our current audience, right, mostly middle-aged, Midwesterners, and we say, hey, we're doing a J Dilla watch, they probably wouldn't be that excited, right? And so my thought process was, all right, how do I use another person in culture who's got a huge audience? Big Sean's, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 million followers across all his platforms, right? And he's from Detroit, wore a J Dilla hat at his tiny desk like 2 months prior.
Yeah.
Right? Talks about Dilla all the time, inspired by Dilla. I'm like, all right, I want to use Sean as the launch pad moment. So we built a landing page, and we didn't have, all we said was J Dilla 2025, Shinola's 25 Great American, James Whit Yancey, coming soon. Didn't show the watch. And Big Sean posted the video that we filmed, and he did the VO for it. And we sent the video out with the landing page live. We got like 4,000 people signed up to buy the watch without even seeing it.
Oh, wow.
And it went crazy. Big Sean's video alone got 1 million views. We posted the video with the state, and it got like, it was one of our best performing videos of all time. And I was like, all right, we got 5 weeks to keep this up.
Yeah.
And we just had everything pulsed right. And like, we ended up interviewing Dan Sharnish, who wrote the book. We did an interview with Roger Erickson, who was the first African-American to shoot the cover of Vogue. And then the last person to photograph J Dilla.
Wow.
So we went so deep with the storytelling. And we worked with, we made sure we worked with the state and his daughters and everyone to just make sure we were incorporating the right people into the storytelling. And we did a content thing with Slum Village, his first group, and like we did so many things But that initial announcement from Big Sean, like, set it off. And everyone was like, wait, what is this? And then, you know, we got super, super deep into like the blog world, and we worked with Fake Short Drive and Andrew Barber and Incredible and like his platform. And like, you know, we did some seeding and like unboxing and like fastest sellout in Shinola history. All the 650 watches were gone by noon. And yeah, I think almost two to 3 hours gone. It was so crazy. We had people calling the store. It was like, hey, can I buy the sample? We're like, we can't sell you. The sample doesn't work. Like, it's just a sample. Like, all the stores, you know, each had one for a display as a display unit. We're like, no, we can't sell it. Like, people were like, I'll pay whatever. Yeah. And it was just such an incredible moment. And to me, it's like, that was an embodiment, of like two things. One, like 2.5 years of work. Yeah. Right? Relationship building, pitching internally and externally, making sure that the storytelling was right. And B, like, again, going back to the product side, like, our product team did such an incredible job with that watch. And it's like, we had people who didn't know who Dilla was, but still wanted the watch, and vice versa, right? And like, it's cool seeing like people post, you know, we were getting tagged in so many videos of people like buying the watch and, you know, and like making content. And it's like, one of my favorite ones I saw was like, I bought this watch because I loved it. And I've been listening to Donuts ever since on repeat after I like started researching who Dilla was. And like, that's such a powerful thing that like you could have, you know, a brand to like cultivate that kind of reaction to something. Right. And it's like, we are just a conduit. Yeah. Right. And it's like, if we do our job right, if we make a good product and tell a good story, like the ripple effect for that could like go crazy. Yeah. And it did, you know?
I will say one thing that I didn't write down or send to you, but I feel like you might be the right person to sort of like encapsulate it, and it might be a great place to sort of put a pin in for now, and maybe we'll come back and do part two.
In Detroit, part two in
exactly.
Detroit.
I was gonna say, like,
in the factory.
I'm in the zone with just like, this isn't the last time we're gonna see each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one question I do wanna ask you, because I feel like throughout this entire conversation, and even just as you've talked about your career ascension, the word influence keeps coming to my mind. Mm-hmm. What makes, you talked about, people who had an influence on American history, American culture. You talk about pitching, you talk about all these things. I sort of just want to maybe ask in a final question, like, what makes someone influential, especially today?
That's a great question, and I could probably go on for hours about it. I think there's a couple things come to mind. One, I think true influence is being true to yourself, first and foremost, right? I think what I don't like about kind of the influencer economy and all this stuff now is that everyone, it's to me, it feels like a rat race to the bottom, because some sort of like content goes viral, a content format goes viral, and everyone does their version of that. Everyone's being influenced by the algorithms. No one's really influencing people, right? And I talk to my friends about this all the time, because I'm like, that's not real influence. And I always say there's a difference between like digital influence and real life influence. Like, there's people who can get 1 million views on Instagram, but can't get 5 people to show up to a meet and greet. Or get 10 people to buy a product, right? So you gotta to separate that, right? And they're both important, right? Like, eyeballs, attention, media, views is a part of it, right? Like, as brands, as people, like, we strive for those, right? But to me, the powerful thing is like, hey, can you get people to show up to a concert, to buy a ticket, to buy a watch, to share a video? How do you go beyond kind of top line influence, right? So I think a lot of that comes down to just like being true to yourself, right? Like, one of my biggest inspirations, rest in peace, Virgil Abloh. And what I loved so much about him was he stuck to his vision no matter what he did, right? He was never going to compromise his art and his creativity across DJing, across food, across clothing, across art, across whatever, right? And I think that is like the truest form of influence, right? Being able to be true to yourself and then also expressing that in the most purest form. And that to me, I think people kind of lose sight of that sometimes because everyone thinks like, oh, having more followers is influential. And it's really not. Like, what I love most about my role is finding people who aren't popping, but have huge communities and like such strong engagement and using our brain as the platform for them, you know? And I think that's the coolest part about all of it is just like, you know, it's easy to get caught up in kind of like the vanity and the metrics and this and that. And it's like, to me, that's not how I would define influence. Yeah. I think about this a lot, a lot. And just like, again, I don't know. I feel like people are so like just like we're all trying to feed the algorithms. Yeah. And I'm just like, for why are we doing that? You know, like,
yeah. I really like that you said it's about being true to who you are. Mm-hmm. And in an age where internet culture is so huge, I think a lot of people have a false sense of that. Yeah. So to take a step back sometimes from that rat race is going to help you propel forward. Yeah. The rat race keeps you preoccupied in that.
I'm going to give you one more gem. So back in my agency days, and I still kind of use this line a lot, I would make a slide, right? And the slide would say, everyone's trying so hard to be the same kind of different. And then I would follow it up with like, here's your competitors. Everyone's doing the same type of content, using the same type of influencers. Everyone's trying so hard to be the same kind of different. Your opportunity is to actually be different. Yeah. You know, whether that means like talking to a new audience, building, you know, doing a great American you wouldn't have done before, whatever that case is, like what is your actual different versus like what you think is different based on what everyone else is doing, you know? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the Right Hype podcast. This has been such an amazing...
We didn't even talk watches, really.
I know. We were supposed to get into so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time today, but this is not the last time.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, man. This was incredible. Awesome. This was incredible.
Till next time.
Made the trip worth it.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.
All right, that's a wrap on another episode of the Right Hype podcast. If what we just covered sparked something in you, don't let the momentum die here. Consistency beats intensity every time. So hit the subscribe button so you get these episodes automatically delivered to you, because the people who win are the ones who stay plugged in and locked in. Check out the show notes for additional resources and an exclusive invitation to our creative network on Substack. And I'll see you on the next episode.